Good afternoon and welcome to Psychology Software for Today's Student. Our presenter today is Kate Sharp of Hawks Learning. If you have any questions for the presenter during the session, please feel free to enter those into the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll address them at the end of the talk. We're also giving away 3 $25 Amazon gift cards at the end of the session. To enter for a chance to win, click the link in the chat to enter your name onto the prize wheel. And on that note, I will hand things over to Kate.
All right, thanks so much, Kelsey, and hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining and for spending your time with us. We really appreciate it. As Kelsey mentioned, my name is Kate, and I will be walking you through a demonstration of the Hawks Intro to Psychology materials today. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and we can get started. So give me just a second. Let me know if for some reason you cannot see it or if there are any sound issues, but hopefully we are good to go. What we are looking at right now is the Hawks Learning Student Dashboard. So this is the sort of homepage for your students, if you will. Right off the bat, there are several things to discuss. We have a grades tab, which will sync with your school's LMS, I should add. We do integrate with Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, D2L Brightspace, and your students will be able to see all of their up-to-date grades in Hawks here, as well as have those sync over. The eBooks tab is exactly what it sounds like. Your students can access their ebooks for the courses that they're enrolled in here. The discussions tab is going to give you an option for a live chat or a discussion board where you can have students thread their responses to post below. That is up to you how much or how little you'd like to use that. We saw the live chat used a good bit in COVID for live Q&A sessions before a test, virtual office hours, things like that. The bell is going to notify your students of any assignments that are upcoming or overdue, and you can also message your students directly through the Hawks platform. The last thing I'll touch on is this drop-down menu is where we house our live support and training videos. I always like to talk about our support at Hawks because it's something we are so proud of. We offer really family-style support, and what I mean by that is we offer phone hours from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Time. If you or your students need us, you can call into our number. It's the same number I would use as an employee to call into the office, and we pledge that a live person will answer that phone within 4 rings. I always like to say no robots at Hawks, just people. Obviously, you or your students may need us outside of those phone hours, so we also offer a 24/7 live chat. Again, there's an actual person on the other end of the chat. Moral of the story, we are always going to get you and your students the help you need. If you do use Hawks, our schools are assigned training and support representatives as well, who are there to offer free and unlimited training and support. We know that you as instructors have plenty on your plate without having to be tech support for students as well. So we do really encourage you to encourage them to reach out to us if they have any questions. But here under my courses, your students will see all that they're enrolled in with us. So of course, I have our psychology title up today. Right off the bat, your students will see this mini to-do list, letting them know what's due today, within the week, or later, so they know what's on the horizon. They can access any of these lessons directly from the links, but I will click View Course, and that is going to bring up your students' comprehensive to-do list of everything that they've been assigned for the semester. So this is going to include homework, quizzes, tests, projects, anything and everything that you have assigned. And these headers are also customizable. So where you see due today, within the week, or later, you could change those to say chapters, modules, whatever you would like them to be. If I click over to the Lessons tab, this is specifically going to show your students the homework lessons that they have been assigned. So if we were to click into one of these lessons, this is the Hawks 3-step learning path. So whether your student is enrolled in Intro to Psychology, if they're enrolled in math or English with us, it doesn't matter. They are always going to see Learn, Practice, and Certify, these 3 big buttons. We try to keep our interface very simple and user-friendly because we often hear students saying that one of the challenges with online learning is that they get lost trying to navigate their learning systems. So hopefully with just 3 big buttons, no one can get lost and they always know what to expect. The Learn mode is what houses the multimedia presentation of our textbook content. So everything that you are going to see here in Learn is going to match what is in the physical textbook or the ebook word for word. There are just 2 main differences. Number 1, we include some interactive components, which I'll point out. And number 2, we make it bite-sized. What I mean by that is we have only pulled out in this instance the 16 pages of content for lesson 5.2 rather than opening up the entire ebook that might be a couple hundred pages. So we try to really make it bite-sized for your student, have them focus on the lesson at hand and make it seem a little bit more manageable. But I did mention interactive components. You can see one of those things right here. We have a link to our pre-built and verified Quizlet sets for your students. Those are free and available for them to use. They are going to include all of the key terms, definitions, concepts from the lesson, and they can practice with those pre-built Quizlet sets. We also have a watch button available on all of our Learn screens. If your students click watch, at any point, that is going to bring up the lesson level video for them. We do have a lesson level video available for each of our lessons within the title, and these videos are just going to give your students all the key takeaways for the lesson as a whole. In other words, if you don't learn anything else from lesson 5.2 on classical conditioning, at least know what is in this video. We try to keep the videos pretty short. They're usually about 3 to 5 minutes long. We got feedback if they're much longer than that. Students do not like to watch, don't tend to watch them. So we keep them nice and short. These are great review tools as well for your students if they want to go back and watch these before a test. But I'll click through a couple of the Learn pages so you can see what it looks like. Again, this is the exact same content that is in the physical textbook or just the plain ebook. We are, of course, going to bold any terms and definitions your students need to know. Now, this is the lesson on classical conditioning. So, of course, we are going to talk about Pavlov and his dog and that experiment. Here we've linked to another interactive piece of it. We have linked to a website where your students can play a game to help condition Pavlov's dog. We've also linked to an external video here of Dr. Collin explaining classical conditioning. And so we try to include as many external resources and just fun little things to engage your students with the material as they're learning as we can. Continuing through, we also have these on your own activities where your student can check their knowledge as they are working to make sure that they're understanding the concepts and not missing anything big. If they get the wrong answer, it'll prompt them to try again. And I also wanted to mention our customization options at Hawks. You as the instructor have a lot of power to customize our content and make the course exactly what you want it. There are a few options you have. Number 1, you can completely replace any of our existing pages. If you have something pre-built that you want to use, you can also completely hide any of our pages. So if there's a topic that you don't want to cover, you could hide the screen and your students wouldn't even have to see it and be confused by it. And option 3 is a Learn screen note, which is what is indicated here by this break in the page. When you add a Learn screen note, you're essentially adding to our existing content. So when you do that, the top half of the screen is going to be all of the Hawks content just left alone as is. But then the bottom of the screen is whatever customizations you have made. So you can make your Learn screen note something very simple, like, hey, students, be familiar with this chart up here. You're going to see that again on the test, wink, wink. Or you can make it a little more complex. You can embed a video like we've done here. Some instructors like to pre-record their lectures and house those here, link to an external website. It's really up to you. Again, my point being, you've got a lot of power with these customization options to make the course your own. We'll also include some of these everyday connections throughout. Again, just trying to connect the material back to things that your students are going to recognize, be familiar with, hopefully get them engaged a little bit more. So in this instance, we are talking about the classical conditioning at Stingray City in the Cayman Islands, where the stingrays swarm the boats of tourists because they know they are about to be fed. So any little anecdotes or stories, again, that we can put in here to make things relatable for your students, we absolutely will. But that is essentially the learn mode. After they exit learn, they can move on to step 2, which is practice. Before I jump in, I always like to mention that practice is exactly what it sounds like. It is penalty-free, not graded, but all of the question types that your students see in the practice mode will appear again for a grade and certified. So by default, learn and practice are not graded or required. They are meant to set your students up for success and certify, which is their graded required homework. So on the flip side of that, we know that if you do not require practice, you may have students who probably should spend time there but won't. So you as the instructor have the option to require practice in part or in full before your students can attempt certify. The reason we don't require it right off the bat is because we don't want to penalize any student who can go straight to certify and make a 100 by making them spend time in the first 2 modes. But a lot of flexibility. Again, we are giving you the power as the instructor to know your class and turn on what features work best for you. But a few things to point out within the practice mode. First, we do have a skip button. So if your student says, I'm good with this concept, I've got that one down, they don't have to spend time on it. They can skip and move on to something that maybe they do need a little bit more work on. So here is a really different question. Let's take a look at one. This asks us which sentence in the following paragraph best illustrates stimulus discrimination. This is one of our click to select questions. So all your student has to do is hover over the questions, or excuse me, the sentences in their scenario. Click to select the one they think is correct and click submit. Now, obviously that was the wrong answer. If it was right, that bar would just be green and say great job or excellent, something to that effect. But we try to intervene the moment your student makes a mistake to help them understand why their answer was wrong so that they do not repeat that mistake. So we have explain error feedback built in to anticipate and diagnose common errors. If your students click on explain error, we're going to tell them, here's what you answered. Here is what you were asked to do. Your answer is incorrect, but we're not going to stop there. Your answer is incorrect because it does not identify when the students demonstrate a condition response only to the condition stimulus. So again, we are just going to provide that full explanation for your students. We know there is nothing more frustrating as a student than being told your answer is wrong, but you don't know why or what you should have done differently. So we're always going to provide your students with an explanation. Hopefully after your student has received the explain error feedback, they say, oh, okay, I understand what I did. They can go back to practice, try a similar question, keep working, up to them. Now, maybe your student needs a little bit of help getting started. That's okay too. We have a tutor button available for them. If they click tutor, that is going to bring up hint, learn, and solution. The helpful hint is usually going to provide your students with any sort of relevant definitions they need. In this instance, they were asked to select the sentence that best illustrated discrimination. We are going to define that for them because they certainly can't identify it in context if they don't know what discrimination is in the first place. Learn mode is also built back into the tutor. This might seem like a small thing, but we get great feedback from students on this feature simply because if they want to go back and review some of the ebook or textbook content, they don't have to stop what they're doing, exit out of practice mode, pull up the ebook, flip to find the content. It's just seamlessly integrated for them right here. And then lastly, your student can always view the correct answer, but keeping with the Hawks mentality that it's the why behind the right or wrong answer that's so important to student learning, we're going to show your student the following answer is correct. Again, it is correct because, and provide that explanation for them. We just never want your student to be left saying, my answer was wrong, I don't know why, or, okay, I see that that's the correct answer, but couldn't tell you why. Always providing that explanation. At any point during the tutor, your student can go back to practice. And of course, after they have seen the correct answer, they are forced to try a similar question. They'll receive a new iteration, a new scenario, testing the same knowledge, but multiple opportunities to practice and continue working. So your students will continue working through the practice mode like this, skipping what they feel comfortable with, trying similar questions if they need more work, and you get the idea, hopefully. The last thing I'll mention about the practice mode is this send to instructor button. This is a completely optional feature. By default, it is turned off. But if you were to opt in, it will link the software to the email address of your choosing. And if your students click send to instructor, the software is going to take a screenshot of the question that they're working on and put it in an email draft to you. So at that point, your student could say, "Hi, professor, I'm stuck on question 6 on my homework. Can you help me?" And you could see exactly what they were seeing rather than trying to type all this out in an email. So again, completely optional for whether you want to use that or not, but it is a convenience feature that's available to you. After your students have been through the practice mode and they have been through the content and the learn mode, now they should be ready to attempt for their homework grade so they can move on to step 3, which is certify. So certify, again, is what they are required to complete and what they are receiving a grade for completing. Other than that, there are just 2 main things to discuss about certify. Number 1, it looks and acts very similar to the practice mode. The main difference being that we have removed those learning tools from the bottom of the screen. So where you in practice saw skip, try similar, tutor, obviously that is gone. The reason that we remove those here is not to be a punishment. It's absolutely for your students' benefit. I'm not sure if this is something that y'all have seen in your classes, but the number 1 complaint we hear at Hawks is instructors saying that their students might be acing homework or performing very well, and then bombing tests. They are not having those grades translate from homework to test scores. And it's a fair question. They want to know why. Most online systems allow your students to use some sort of learning aids on graded assignments. And in and of themselves, learning tools are good. We have them in practice. They do help your students learn, but what can really quickly happen is they become a crutch for your students. And your student might not even realize how reliant they are on that help until they get to a test or a quiz. It's not there and they realize, oh gosh, I don't know this concept as well as I thought I did. So we remove that help here in the homework to get your students used to that. So the first time they are figuring out what they don't know is on the homework as opposed to on the test or the quiz. The second thing we do is we make certify mastery based. What I mean by that is by default, we set a mastery level at about 80%. Like everything else with Hawks, that is customizable. So you can choose to raise that or lower that. But as a rule of thumb, we find if your students get 80% of the homework correct, that's a B. That's a fairly good indicator that they learned the content. So with 20 questions as just the default in this particular lesson, you can absolutely adjust the number of questions and hand select the questions. But with 20 in this lesson, in an 80% mastery level, your students can look at the red heart in the corner, which is meant to be like their lives left in a video game, see that they can lose 3 lives or miss 3 questions, and they're still going to earn a 100 for having mastered this homework assignment at that 80% mastery level. And as they work, this meter will fill up towards the gold medal at the end. As they make mistakes or lose lives, their life count will go down. So we try to make it as much like a game as we can make homework. Now, say that your student misses a 4th question in this instance, or they dip below the mastery level that you have set for them. It's not just a bad grade. We don't just say tough luck, better luck next time. That is where we bring in the adaptive remediation component of the software. So in this instance, if I'm the student, as soon as I miss a 4th question, the software is going to pull me out of certify, put me directly back into practice mode, where I'm going to receive a custom question set based on what I missed here in certify. So it's really tailored to each individual student, allowing them to focus on what they specifically need to focus on. So that really custom learning approach. And then keep in mind, once they are back in practice with their custom question set, they have access to the learning aids there. So at that point, if they need the tutor, it's there for them. If they make a mistake, they'll receive that error specific feedback. They can try similar as much as they need to remediate. And then once they feel good about what they missed the first time, they can come back and try to certify again. We do give your students unlimited certify attempts up until the due date. The reason for that is we think that homework should be a lower stakes learning environment than a test or a quiz. Homework is where you really want your students making mistakes and learning from them. So by the time they get to the test or the quiz, they can say, I have been there, done that, learned from it, and they're not going to repeat those mistakes. So with this mastery-based framework, we do see homework to test scores correlating much better. And students actually give us great feedback on this mastery approach because it kind of takes some of the pressure off of them. They are not so worried about completing their homework and not making any mistakes to get the grade because they understand I can miss 3 questions in this instance and still earn a 100. I just have to demonstrate that I have mastered X% of this lesson as a whole. And they have unlimited opportunities to certify, to hit that mastery level, and to be successful. But that is our 3-step learning path. Again, anytime your student goes to complete an assignment with us, this is how they'll work through it with learn, practice, and certify. So that is where I wanted to spend the majority of our time. But if I go back to the course, there are a few other things I wanted to point out to you. First, we do have a web test tab here. So if you have assigned any quizzes or tests for your students, those would appear here in the dropdown. I just don't have any assigned. But I wanted to show you our practice web test feature. This is something that is always available to your students, and it's one of our more popular features with students. So if I click create a practice web test, this is where your students can create a practice test that is very similar to the actual test environment. So say that you told them they have exam number 1 coming up. They can just name it whatever they want to name it. Let me name it exam 1 practice. And maybe you told them that exam 1 is going to be on chapter 2. They can just select whatever lessons are relevant. Let me actually show you, you can add anything across lessons and chapters. And then maybe you told them that is going to be a 15-question test and they get 30 minutes to complete it. They can just set those selections and then whatever those parameters are, the software will generate, I've been talking so much today, the software will generate a practice test for them that looks and acts very similar to the actual test environment. So as you can see, the timer is available for your students. They can hide that and unhide it at any point. If the timer stresses them out, they don't have to look at it. I'm just going to answer some questions, not even trying to get them right, but just to generate some data for us. You also have the ability to skip around in the practice mode like you could on a test. So if I don't want to answer question 3 right now, I can just go to the next and I can come back to it later. So I'm just going to click through some of these, skip some questions, get a few more in here to generate some more data. And then say that I have been skipping around like I've been doing and my time is running out. Rather than having to toggle back and forth, your students can select the drop-down menu, check the box to hide the ones they've already answered, and then just go to the ones that they have not yet answered. So I'll just click a couple more questions here. And when your student is ready to submit, they just click submit assignment. Now, obviously, I have not answered all the questions, so it's going to warn me that mine is incomplete. For these purposes, I'll go ahead and submit, but that's great because your student can't accidentally forget to answer a question and then submit. But this is the type of feedback that your students are going to receive. Right off the bat, they'll get to see what their score was. So with my blind guessing, I got us a 26, not great. But at the bottom, you can see an overall and a by lesson performance breakdown. This is really helpful because your student can look at this data and say, okay, look, I did really well on lesson 2.3, parts of the nervous system, but boy, I need a lot more work on the brain and the spinal cord. So it helps them identify where they're successful and what areas they need to focus on as they continue to study. So if your students scroll back up to the top, they have the ability to retake this practice test as many times as they would like to. They have the ability to generate new practice tests, and they also have the ability to review their attempts. So they can come in and see what they answered as well as what the correct answer was for all of these questions on their practice test. Not only that, because as I mentioned before, we know that it's the why behind the right or the wrong answer that's really important to student learning. We're going to tell your student that this is the correct answer, but if they click Open Tutor, they're going to receive the explain error feedback, telling them your answer is incorrect because, and providing an explanation for them. They also have access within the tutor, of course, to the Learn mode if they want to go back and review. And of course, they can view the worked out solution if it's math, but of course we are in psych, so they can see the explanation. And again, the why behind that correct answer. At any point, they can return to their practice test, continue looking at some other questions. If they want to, again, select the drop down, they can just hide the ones that they got correct to only focus on the ones that were incorrect, or in my case, not answered, and review their attempts that way. But let me end the review and go back to the course. The last thing I wanted to show you today was the materials tab. This is where we're going to house our Hawk support link. Again, I mentioned at the start of this, we offer phone hours, 24/7 live chat, training videos. We're going to automatically put that here under materials. We are also going to link to our Psychology Companion website. I'll jump to that in just a second, but I also wanted to make the mention that you as the instructor have the ability to add anything else to the materials tab. So if you wanted to house your syllabus here, you could, any group projects or activities, really anything else you want to add to the course, you can have housed here under the materials tab. But if I click on our Psychology Companion website, I actually had it pulled up already. Your student can click on the title, and there are lots of other resources available. So we do have chapter projects available for every single chapter within the title. So if I click on one of these, just to show you an example, it's going to pull up in PDF format. We're going to outline, of course, the project's purpose. We're going to give your students directions. And then at the end, and materials. And then at the end, you can get them together to discuss their findings, discuss their process, how they completed the project. This is a great way to get your students engaging and interacting with one another in class. Or you can assign these outside of class for extra credit. Maybe you have like a lab hour, something like that, that you could use these in. But again, those are free and available for every chapter within our Intro to Psych textbook. I also mentioned the Quizlet as we were going through the Learn mode of the student software. Those will be integrated directly into the content, but your students can also always come directly here to see what Quizlet sets we have for each of our chapters and go directly to those from here. And then lastly, we also have a tab of other resources. So there's a lot here, a lot of really fun stuff for you to pick from. Here we have a activity about a genderbread person. This is a teaching tool for breaking down concepts of gender. We have an essay about husband training, the psychology of ghosting, a term that your students are probably very familiar with. And if they click on any of these links, excuse me, my Wi-Fi is being a little bit slow, but it will take them directly to those activities or those articles. So a lot available to you and your students besides just the main platform. But that is the majority of what I wanted to go over today. I know that we still have a good bit of time, so I'm happy to open it up to questions. If there's anything specific that you all want to see, I'm happy to jump into it and demo that. But yeah, I will rest and let you all speak.
So first, please just don't forget to enter your questions into the Q&A box that's located at the bottom center of your Zoom console if you do have any questions for Kate. We have a couple that have come through that I wanted to ask.
Perfect.
First one that came through is, does the system integrate with Canvas LMS?
Yes, great question. So we do integrate with Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, and D2L Brightspace. So that's a long-winded answer, but yes, grades will sync over as well as assignment due dates, and we offer single sign-on and deep linking.
Thanks, Kate. Another question that we received is, can I make my students do the practice mode of a lesson?
Yes, great question. You absolutely can. If I just click back into this, by default, again, it is not required, but you as the instructor can choose either to require practice in its entirety or just say complete, 50, 60% of it before allowing your students to attempt to certify.
Thank you so much. We have a few more flowing through. So one attendee is asking what edition of the text we're currently on.
Sure. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is first edition, correct?
But we are actually actively working on our second edition of this book. We anticipate having the new edition released for review around October 2023. So if you had any questions, or if you're a current user or prospective user have questions about the differences between the two, we can certainly share some more specifics on that.
Absolutely. Thanks.
The next is a question about how to get started with the platform and scheduling one-on-one, and if we can schedule one-on-one training.
Yes, great question. We absolutely can schedule a one-on-one training. If the platform is something that you would like to use, we would just put you in touch with your school's representative. It's by state, so if you just let us know which state you're located in, we can get you in touch with your rep, and they will be happy to meet with you one-on-one to help you request your instructor gradebook, train you, help you get your course set up just like you want it. And then as far as actually getting started with the platform for students, you would just let us know how you wanted them to receive the materials. So whether you want them to purchase an access code through your school's bookstore directly from Hawks, we can also work with the inclusive access model. So again, a long-winded answer to, we'll get you in touch with your rep. We are happy to meet with you one-on-one and hammer all this out, but it's a pretty quick process.
It is. And just to add to that, we do offer unlimited training and support. So it's not really just that initial one-on-one that you'll have with your training and support specialist. You can reach out to them at any time you have questions or need support for you or any other faculty at your institution using. We're always readily available to meet virtually and ensure that it's a smooth transition and smooth implementation.
Absolutely. So once you set it up, we do not quote throw you to the wolves. If you need us at any point after that, we are happy to keep supporting and helping.
Another question that has come through is Hawks considering adding additional psychology books specific to different areas of psychology.
So right now the focus is on working on our second edition of Intro. I'm not going to say never. Hopefully in the future we can expand into some other courses within psychology, but as of right now we're still focused on Intro, so it would not be in the near future. But great question.
It is a good question. And we, like Kate said, we're always looking to expand our offerings. So I'm not sure if that came from a current user who's already using this title and interested elsewhere, but if you could communicate with us where you see the need, what sort of psychology specialty area you would find that this would be most helpful. And that always helps us to kind of plan ahead and make decisions down the line when we are ready to move into other areas of psychology. So definitely communicate that to us if you can.
Yes, please. The more we know, the better.
A question about wanting to know the price of the platform for students.
Okay, great question. So for the software and the ebook, so everything I showed you today, plus access, of course, to the ebook here, it is a direct to your bookstore cost of $43. What I mean by direct to your bookstore is your bookstore will likely put their own markup on it. It varies by school, but we typically see it around 20%. But we sell the software in the ebook to your bookstore for $43. Or your students can purchase directly from Hawks if you didn't want to go through your bookstore for, I believe it's $53.99, which is pretty comparable to probably what it will be with the markup. That does include lifetime licensing. So if your students purchase the software and the ebook access code once, it is theirs forever. That does not go away at the end of the semester. The only caveat to lifetime licensing is if your school goes through the inclusive access model, which is where their cost of materials is included upfront in tuition. We just can't offer lifetime licensing with that because of agreements with some of those third-party inclusive access bookstores. But going through your bookstore or directly from Hawks, direct price $43.99 and lifetime access. And you have the option to add a physical textbook or the guided notebook, which is like a workbook as well. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember the prices to add those things, but I can look them up.
We had another question come through about test bank. Do we have, or do instructors have access to a test bank? And are the questions and answers relatively secure? I think there's concern about just Googling the answers and
Sure.
preserving the test security.
Yes, great question as well. We do give you access to our entire test bank. So what we have been through today is just the student side of the platform. We also have a whole instructor side where there's a lot more available to you. You can absolutely see our entire question bank. You can pull questions from it to customize your homework and your test. And then as far as security goes, we have teams who are constantly monitoring sites like Chegg, some of these other websites that your students might be using. So as soon as we notice any sort of Hawks questions on those sites, we take really swift action to get them removed. Obviously, students are quick and it's something that is really hard to stay on top of. So while I can't promise you that you won't ever see a question online, I can promise that we're actively on top of it. And because we are a little bit smaller within the publishing world, we have that capacity to be able to stay on top of that as much as we can and monitor. As far as testing security goes, we also integrate with Respondus Lockdown Browser. We also work with, I believe it's Proctorio. So that is an added measure as far as testing security. And then you also have the ability, of course, to password protect assignments, quizzes, test. You can restrict IP addresses. Let's see. Select the times that it's available for your students. So there's a lot of measures we take to help you with that. But definitely a fair question.
Really comprehensive answer. Thanks, Kate. One thing to add to that is we do also give, from the instructor side of the platform, you have access to create your own content as well. So if this is an area of concern, we offer a tool called Question Builder that lets you author your own multiple choice, free response, open-ended questions that you can include on these types of assessments that would give you additional control over the content that you include on your test and the ability to expand the bank of questions that we already make available to you just to kind of further fine-tune the content to meet the specific needs of your students. And if you are concerned about testing security, that is an area where if you are creating the questions from scratch, it's certainly not something that the students would likely find on a website like Chegg or something else. So I just wanted to make that note as well.
Great point, Kelsey.
We have one person who, I just wanted to make a note here, who may have accidentally added their information for the spin and win to the Q&A. So just, Ryan, if you wouldn't mind pasting in the link one more time to the spin and win so that we can get that added correctly. We've got several thank yous and thanks for all of the information you provided. There is one person who has requested access to our guided workbook. I've made a note of that, so we can go ahead and get that sent over to you and your training and support specialist or sales representative, depending on if you're using or not, will follow up with you directly. And I think we have time for one more. What happens when a student withdraws from a class and the instructor drops them off the roster within Hawks? Does the student lose their completed content as well? I could probably take answering this.
That'd be great. Thanks.
So if you do have a student who has withdrawn from the class and you choose to delete them from your Hawks roster, if they then re-enroll in a new course, the student would have to start that course over, dependent on the settings that the new instructor, if that's you or somebody else, has on their section. Oftentimes that's what instructors want, to have students sort of start the content over if they do eventually re-enroll into the course. We do have some workarounds around that if you wanted to, and we can certainly explore those if you are a current customer. And then in addition, we are actively working on one additional feature to be able to mark in students as inactive, which would essentially just kind of take them out of gradebook calculations and your grade calculations from the instructor side of the platform, but not remove them entirely from the course and not remove their grade. So if ever they were remarked as active, maybe you have certain stipulations in the term where you have to, on certain dates, mark students as inactive if they haven't attended class, and then reactivate them if they join the class back. That's a setting that's coming. We also have, like I said, some workarounds and ability for you to preserve grades for those students if you do choose to drop them from your roster, so that if you ever wanted to get them back in with their grades, that's certainly something that we can accommodate on an individualized basis. I think we are out of time, so I'd love to just go ahead and transition. I will be sure to mark the questions that are in there that haven't been answered yet and get answers typed out to those of you who have added things into the Q&A. So thank you so much for that. It is time for the giveaway. So thank you, Kate, first and foremost, for all of the valuable information you shared with us today. And let's go ahead and get started with the giveaway. Each winner today will receive a $25 Amazon gift card. Let's get started. The winner is Claudia. The next winner is me. I'm not going to tell your last name. Congratulations. And our final winner . Thank you so much. Congratulations to all of our winners. So we appreciate everyone attending. The next concurrent session is going to begin at 2 p.m. Eastern time. You can view the chat for session meeting room links or access the conference website for a complete list of concurrent sessions and their descriptions. While accessing the conference website, don't forget to swing by the virtual exhibit hall and say hello to the Hawks team. View a quick 5-minute demonstration, request your t-shirt, and be entered to win the hourly giveaway, your choice of a $50 Amazon gift card, Ticketmaster gift card, or Barnes & Noble gift card. And we will see you at the next session.